dodging blows, feint strikes, as well as combinations through weapon perks are some of the combat moves we can do in Kingdom Come Deliverance, and today we'll be discussing what you need to know about them. Before we begin, I would just like to give a quick reminder that these three are all subservient to the Master Strike, which is the easiest way to win every fight, and it's not hard to pull off. I'll leave a link here to a video that should help you get acquainted with that powerful move just in case. But if you're already proficient with it, the movesets we'll be covering here will act as flourishes to your offensive prowess. Let's begin. Dodging is one of the basic moves Henry will learn from Captain Bernard during training. If you know how to Master Strike, then you already know when to pull off a dodge, because the timing is basically the same. When we see our opponent twitch as their attack animation begins, we press left, right, or backwards movement control to execute it. At the beginning of the game, when our stats are still very low, this will be challenging to do because its main driving force is agility. The higher it is, the longer our window for evasive maneuvers. This is why the light armor perk at 8 agility is highly recommended, because it will increase the window even further, as long as we're not wearing any plate type of armor. In later levels, you can safely disregard this if you wish, because according to my test at 14 agility, dodging even while wearing plate was relatively easy.
Not a good move.
There is, however, one major issue. Unlike in other games where a window of opportunity is given after successfully evading an attack, it doesn't exist here. Sometimes we might connect a hit as expected, but more often than not, it will be thwarted in some way, because any strike after dodging is considered as a normal one. I also tested out the taunt perk, described as being able to demoralize an enemy if we dodge their attacks. But there's no clear indication of what it actually does. Against Captain Bernard and on the tournament opponents, it has no perceivable effect. It did, however, work with a group of bandits I encountered on the road, who surrendered after I simultaneously evaded their strikes.
Come and get it.
Oddly enough, the same move didn't work against a ruffian on the campsite northeast of Ratai. I spent 5 minutes just dodging his attacks, but nothing happened. This would have been a nice way to finish the game without eliminating anyone, but the results are inconsistent. A more concrete utilization of this move is for stopping combination attacks. It's also very useful during fistfights. In this combat mode, enemies are momentarily open to counterattacks after dodging, and is really fun to do. Apart from pressing any directional button away from our opponent, we can also just press block as they throw a punch or a kick. This will make Henry automatically do a backstep, and as long as the attack hasn't landed yet, it's guaranteed to work. Let's now talk about feints. In order to execute them, all you need to do is press and hold the attack button, which will make Henry draw his weapon back. With the button still held down, we then change the direction of where we'll be hitting from and release it to do a slash. The idea behind this is that as we ready our attack in one direction, it will hopefully bait our opponent to defend from that same side. So as we change to another and strike, they won't have time to react. That's all there is to it. If you'd like to practice this, I suggest using a longsword, limiting the directions between left and right, so you can clearly see Henry's hands as you go through the motions. Once you get the hang of it, you'll be instinctively aware of the timing in any direction you choose, even if the weapon is not visible. The important thing to remember is to release the swing only after we see him switch sides, and not by what's indicated on the combat rows, which tends to change prior to the animation itself. In short, hold the attack, switch directions, release the swing. Feigned attacks are not always guaranteed to land, so Henry's safety is still priority because at any time, the opponent might of course try to hit us. So it's a good thing that drawing the weapon back doesn't prevent any defensive moves. We can still block and or evade as necessary. By the way, I also tried experimenting with feints if they can be connected to dodging. I held the attack button, then dodged a strike before trying to release it, but unfortunately it didn't work. It would have been really cool if we could sneak it in after evading, but it seems feigned attacks are only limited to stand-up fights. Regardless, I think if Master Strikes didn't exist in KCD, attacking through feints is the next best thing, because their hit rate is higher than normal ones. But even those can be useful as well, if we string them together into combinations via weapon perks. We'll look into that next. Weapon perks are a series of normal attacks that when successfully done will lead to a special move, which cannot be defended against. Due to where they come from, finishing combos are not easy because they're interruptible by ripostes and master strikes. But there are two ways in which we can start them off, where the first hit is almost always guaranteed to connect. First is through clinching, because the opponent is momentarily defenseless after pushing them away. The same thing happens when executing master strikes. We have a brief window afterwards that can be used to initiate it. With these in mind, we now have a better chance of using weapon perks. This is also the reason why I like to activate those ones that have 3 moves first instead of 4, because it's one less normal attack that could be intercepted. I'll leave the decision up to you on which combos to choose first, but my personal favorite is the blunt strike, simply because it's the only one that works when we have a shield equipped, and it can also be used by all 3 types of single-handed weapons. The other amusing perk is the Durchlaufen for the longsword, where we basically throw the opponent off balance and see them sprawled on the ground for a couple seconds, which is really funny. It's also worth noting that the foe is unprotected for a split second after receiving a combo hit, which means we can just keep attacking until they're able to stop it, or if we run out of stamina.
The combatants have entered the arena and the first duel may commence. We will witness a duel with longswords.
Of all the combat moves we can do, Master Strikes are still at the top. Therefore, feints, dodging, and weapon combos are meant to be used as spectacles that would add flair to our actions. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you play the game for a while, you'll realize that this is what the system tends to suggest. In any case, if you have a question, especially those who are playing it now on Nintendo Switch, feel free to ask away in the comment section and I'll see if I can help.